running up the score.
Jerry Napoleonello.
This team has been on the clock for 4 months now. Why are we taking this down to the 4-minute mark? You know, you have 10 minutes here. 10 minutes here, but you've had 4 months. The dude's got 1,021 text messages that he hasn't read yet. Did we not notice that?
Kevin Donlin.
Bryce Harper's a great player. He's very, very talented. Aside from last year, but I blame myself. I'm pretty sure I'm the reason for that with fantasy baseball.
That's disgusting.
Wow.
I can't believe that's real. I mean, again, I'm not. I shouldn't hate. I'm not going to be the kind of person that hates.
No,
And he is doing enough hating for the both of us.
as a Cowboys fan, the expectations are so high, and it's just, you're dug into the ground by the end of the season.
You're basically like what the Patriots are, but like you try to do it, but you just don't.
No.
Yeah. At least the Jets, you know what I mean? They have excuses.
This is Running Up the Score, your one-stop spot for all things sports. Now here's your hosts, Jerry Napoleonello and Kevin Donlin.
Oh, yeah. It's time. Running Up the Score. Back. Jerry Napoleonello, Kevin Donlin. Man, we were only in the Beat Laboratory about, 3 days ago?
Yeah,
and
short time frame right now.
And there's actually a lot to talk about. I did not expect it. But, that's just the nature of the beast. Sports. Gotta love them. So if you follow us on Instagram, you're obviously seeing some new things that we're doing. We're just kind of breaking news now. And we want you to follow us. We want you to follow the news that we break, because this stuff that we're breaking daily is the stuff that we're going to end up talking about on on the podcast. So follow us at RUTS Sports on Twitter and Instagram. You could subscribe to us on YouTube. Please do that. Follow us on, just basically everything. I mean, Subscribe to us on iTunes. That'd be nice. So other than that, you can leave us some voicemails. We would like that. You can leave us. We'll put it up on the air. Questions, phrases, statements. If you don't like what we're talking about, let us know. We'd love to make it sound like you're wrong. So, but first we'll start off. The new league, we talked about it on Saturday. Because it started that day, Saturday. They had 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. The XFL is back after 20 some odd years, maybe 19 years, whatever it was. So XFL in 2001 landed a 9.5 rating, which is 102.2 million viewers. So that is out of this world, unbelievable rating. And I kind of put that towards, at that time, wrestling was at its peak. And wrestling had its fingerprints all over the XFL the first time around. I mean, they did some crazy things. I think the opening coin toss, or the the fight for the ball to start off the game, was, I think, the best part of that. But a lot of the things that the NFL has was taken from the XFL. The sky cam, that the interviews on on the field at halftime or whatever, that was all the XFL. So now the XFL, I watched basically all 4 games. Maybe half of one game, half of the other, whatever it was. But I watched most of XFL this weekend. I mean, why wouldn't you? Because it's football, other than the NFL, when the NFL is in their off season. So the first game landed a 3.3 million viewership, peaked at 4 million between the time of 4:45 and 5 p.m. on Saturday. So there's a lot of things that I liked about the XFL, this time around. I thought it was very, very professional looking. They really put a lot into everything. The TV deal, I think, was the biggest portion of the XFL this time around. And that I think is huge. ABC, ESPN, Fox, they're doing a wonderful job with the XFL. And I'm just excited. I'm going to get into more of what I liked, but, I want to get your opinion on, what you thought about, with the XFL this weekend.
My first, when I first saw it years ago, we're talking 2001, like what you said with the cameras and the access to different angles and stuff like that wasn't available. I mean, it was, but the XFL didn't put much focus into it.
No.
The angles they had on their games were different. And, again, like the ratings were unbelievable. Wrestling was really big at the time, and a lot of people were, switching, to take a look at it. There was a really good hype for it. There really wasn't much of a hype going into it this time around. But, again, that's comparing it to 2001. And like you said, I had watched a bit of these games, and I was able to see the different angles, and it's more football based, with a side of different aspects that again change it, and personally, the kickoffs in particular, like that is something that I think the NFL really messed up on that one. I think that would have been a great idea to bring it to the NFL, and the NFL, who knows, in time might take that idea because it's a good one.
I think it all depends on if the XFL, continues to go. If it doesn't, then you're going to see a lot of the stuff that the XFL is doing in the NFL.
And
absolutely.
I honestly, obviously depending on how this works, and we talk about ratings of the first week. It takes time for this stuff.
Absolutely.
We're talking about a brand new league. It's not something that Vince McMahon is doing a big risk here by obviously a lot of money going out to this, like with the TV deals, even as such, and just a lot of work is going into it.
Absolutely.
So the product has to be a decent product. But my best, I honestly would have to say the one thing I liked more than anything was probably the kickoffs. I'm pretty sure that was like the thing for me that really was just like, wow, that is a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the same time, there's really no downtime to the game, which is something the NFL is obviously having a big issue with. And, I mean, even when you're going, you think it's bad when you're sitting on a television. Imagine being, in your seat at a game, and you're trying to watch this game, and you're talking about a kickoff, and then, it's probably a perfect time to go get yourself a beer or two, But at the same time, it's very slow, and it's a slow pace on that aspect. And I did really like the kickoffs. I love the idea of it. I think it'll limit the injuries because, like you said, it prevents people from going full speed at one another. And, that was probably the one take I took from it. I really didn't, the actual product in the field and the particular plays they were doing. I was looking to see if I would see a double forward pass. Didn't see one of those yet written up, which I was surprised. You would think with a rule like that, it's very difficult to pull it off, to be honest, and then even like I said, the option after the touchdown of the 1 point, 2 point, 3 point plays. Interesting to see how coaches are approaching that.
Well, that's another thing that I kind of wanted to get into, but on the aspect of the kickoff, I loved it too. I thought that was awesome, because when you hear about it, you're thinking about it and you're like, how is it going to work? Is this really going to work? Is this going to look stupid? Whatever. When I finally got to see it, I thought it was awesome.
I thought it was amazing.
I mean, you're taking away the full speed hits, as you said, and the dangerous hits, the cut blocks, the this and that, but you're also not forcing, but encouraging the kickoff returner to return the ball.
There's so much strategy that can go into it as well.
That was the thing, because it's basically you're giving time to the guy to receive the ball and take it out of the end zone, or if it's not in the end zone, just overall, I thought it was awesome because they're taking away the thing that the NFL was trying to take away in the full speed hits, but also encouraging the kick return. Because
special teams is still a big part of football, and I've seen teams win because they won the special teams battle.
Yeah.
Because what you do on these punts and these being able to execute field goals, and then obviously kickoffs. And Devin Hester made a career out of it,
Absolutely.
but it's virtually basically non-existent in the NFL, and it's a concern. And I think what the XFL was able to do there was implement that into their game, which I just found very intriguing. And that was probably the most, it was the most, again, I keep repeating myself, but it's the most interesting thing I saw when it comes to the XFL. I mean, there was a lot of aspects, like you said, with these all different other kind of rules, but the kickoffs in particular.
So the other thing that I liked was just because, as I was saying to you the other day, just watching the games and, just kind of discussing like what we liked and, this and that. I also, I told you that this league this time around, they're priding themselves. Even back then, they were priding themselves, but they're priding themselves on the all access feature. So they want the fans to have that access to what's going on. So you're having the play calling mic'd up, which, maybe the rare fan or the, every other, kind of day or week fan doesn't really know the lingo of some of the plays, but it's kind of cool just to hear the coaches call the play. I don't know how long that's going to be able to last because you're just basically going to be telling everybody your playbook, which that, is questionable, but just having,
that could be another aspect of the XFL that can change themselves from the NFL. Like, you talk to any person that plays the game of football and, you have a playbook and you're dead set on the playbook with the terminology and everything, and that can't change because then it becomes a confusing factor.
It's Bible, like in the NFL.
But at the same time, you put an aspect of trying to
change things up,
change up the lingo as the season progresses. It's just another challenge for these coaches. Again, I'm going to let it take its course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I said, is it right being in there? Them calling out these plays and stuff like that. It's interesting. Yeah. It's not relevant to me.
Yeah.
The average fan is not going to look at the lingo like, oh, okay, you just, so I don't know how successful it will be. Maybe for the big time, football my whole life growing up and knowing the game back and forth, but it could bring another element to the game.
Well, it also kind of adds because everybody loved, Tony Romo and just how he, brought his mind to the game. So with him, it's on a whole nother level because he's not hearing the play calling. He's just seeing the formation and just, different things. And he's going to tell you that this, the wide receiver is going to come in motion. Then he's going to throw it over to this guy. That's Tony Romo on like a whole nother level. But this time, these broadcasters will hear, like Joey Galloway was a color analyst, guys like that. So these guys
have been around the game for a long time.
So they hear the play calling at least, and they know the lingo. So they'll be able to do what Tony Romo does just by, knowing what the play call is. But also I thought, which was awesome, was hearing the referees talk to each other. That was one. And hearing the referees talk to the replay official. That I thought was awesome because
I think that's probably going to be a detrimental thing for the NFL to the point where they might have no choice but to have to do something similar.
Absolutely, because
and
now
it's not really taking an idea out of the refs. It's going to be as the demand from the fans. So
Absolutely.
We'll see how this pans out. I love the aspect of that as well. Trying to implement as to why a call is made a certain way.
Yeah.
I really do agree with that. Again, with these kind of aspects that we discuss right now, it's really just to try to make this game better. People love the game of football, and it's a fun game to play. But at the same time, you got to make it a safer game, but you want to make it better. You always want to make the game of football better. Do I believe the game? There are some fans that will absolutely disagree with me, but do I think the game is better with the replays and whatnot? Yeah, absolutely. I think the game has gotten better. I think it's, because you don't want to give up an entire season. For the fan that had been watching for the last 50 years, that replay wasn't always there. And there could be plays that you can even date back, beyond, forever, basically, be your whole life. And as a kid, you remember a particular play that, that shouldn't have been a touchdown today. And, that aspect. But at the same time, the game has gotten better with the, really just trying to get the calls right. And, again, these are human beings that play, that are referees. And just like the XFL is going to show right now, the XFL, you're going to see that these are human beings. We all realize that none of us are perfect. And, at the same time, mistakes are made, but trying to figure it out and get the right call on the field is, it's the most beneficial for the league itself.
So the other thing that is going to be interesting when it comes to the XFL, now, basically, if this goes on to be successful year after year and actually give the NFL a run for their money. So right now, the play on the field was good. It wasn't like it was. I felt like the AAF, the product on the field was kind of lacking. Like it wasn't great. It wasn't great. With the XFL, I'm not going to say it was great, but it was good. It was interesting. It was good to watch football. Like it was good football, basically. But, I'm just trying to, in layman's terms, it was good football. So now, if this starts to get better, where they start to get better players, because the main position that you look at and you kind of say, it's kind of lacking is the quarterback position in this league. And that's where it's going to be interesting. Do they start to get good college quarterbacks to join the XFL rather than the NFL? That's where it's going to be interesting. And if it does get to be a successful league, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of go against each other on making the game better. If the XFL is doing this, well, the NFL is going to feel like they got to do this. And then if the XFL feels like the NFL is doing something good, they're going to have to do. So it's going to be a good dynamic. It's going to be cool. I think it's good for the sport. It's good for the fans as well. Because when you look at it, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, they don't have a league to go up against. Like where they have, I got to change this. If this is being so successful in that league, I got to change this up. I got to try to make. So these leagues are just kind of looking at each other and like, we're not fighting anybody. We're not going up against anybody. Why do we have to change our game? And baseball's having that problem right now where they, basically are trying to make a change, which we'll get into that in a few minutes. But I just thought, I felt like the XFL first weekend, absolute success. They did a 9.5 in 2001. They did, 3.3 million viewers in this past weekend. In 2001, after week one, it was like an avalanche, how fast that went down. It'll be interesting to see if this kind of stays pat, and then just kind of slowly creeps
gradually,
up.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think that's going to be how that's going to change with the product on the field. If the product on the field keeps getting better, but the interviews, on the sideline, mid-play, an offensive line,
they were very amusing.
Offensive lineman cursing, a guy missing a field goal, or, the interviewer comes up to him, puts a microphone right in his face, and it's like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Absolutely.
So I thought that it was funny. It was, Pat McAfee, absolutely perfect sideline reporter. Perfect. I'm surprised that Marquette King is not in the NFL. I mean, the punts that he even did in this game, in the game on Sunday night, was unreal. I don't understand why he's not on a team in the NFL. But maybe he just starts to be a trendsetter. Hey, play for the XFL. Yeah. But that's going to change, depending on contract. None of these guys are going to, bypass $30 million contract for, making $400,000, $500,000. But you were talking about the 1, 2, and 3-point plays. The XFL actually gave a guide to the teams on, how many minutes are left, what you should go for when it comes to the extra points. Barely any of them said to go for a 1-point play. Mind you, there was no 3-point plays in week one. Nobody went for a 3-point play. And most of the time, people went for the coaches went for a 1-point play. So it's going to be interesting to see how the strategy changes as the season goes on when it comes to the point after touchdowns. But like I said, I thought it was a success. I'm excited to watch it this weekend, and upcoming weekends. But to deal with the Dallas team like I'm dealing with the Cowboys, if I really get indebted to this Renegades team and deal with losing like I am with the Cowboys, after the Renegades, I think, have the best odds to win the championship, and they lose week 1 at home. So, it's like the Cowboys all over again.
You could be in Dallas feeling that, because I bet you there's a lot of people in Dallas with that same thought.
So I was talking about, how the MLB is trying to make changes. Everybody talks about this game, and, baseball is always talked about as a boring sport, which we grew up playing. We both love the game. Maybe not what's going on in the game right now, but we both love the game. And they're trying to change things up. And to be honest with you, when I first heard about the discussion of maybe changing the playoff system, I heard bits and pieces of it, and I just thought it was stupid. I was like, you get to pick who you want to play in the playoffs? Like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. And we're going to add teams now? Like, we're talking about how, boring the game is and trying to make it quicker, but now you're adding more teams, a.k.a. more games, a.k.a. a longer period of time for the playoffs. Then I will say, I was listening to the Michael Kay show, and they were talking about it. And they were kind of for it. They liked it. And then they started to give their reasoning for it. And I started to change my mind a little bit. Now, the one thing that we talk about the most, when it starts getting down to the end of the season, in any sport really, you're talking about your team. For us, the Yankees. Yankees, even say if they're a wild card team, who do you want to play? That's the main question. Who do you want to play? I want to play the Indians. Maybe I would love to play the Twins because we just beat up on the Twins all the time. Like that. That's the main question when it starts to get to that point where you're starting to get to the end of the season. Every game matters. Who are you going to play in the playoffs? This, that. Who are we better, matched up against? Well, now you actually can have that question. Like, now it's like, all right, well, the Yankees get to pick who they're going to play. And I think it makes for some good conversation, I would say. It's better for people like us, in the media. I should say it's amazing for us, people in the media. I think it brings that the fan that may be on the fence with baseball, and it kind of sucks them in. Now, what I feel like with this, and I know I'm dragging here, but what I want to say with this is I think most of this has to do with the TV contracts being up after next season. So it's going to be interesting to see, but they're trying to do like a selection Sunday type thing where the teams get to pick. So like I said, they want to add up to 14 teams in the playoffs, which a lot of people say, for such a long season to have such a short playoff, it's kind of stupid. So now, you get that. And what do you think?
I don't like it. That's just me. I think and like you said, I'm one of those like borderline baseball fans, and I'm not a fan of it at all. I think it's just dumb. It's probably the best way to describe it. I don't like the idea of picking your opponent. I think that coming from the other team's perspective, I would take that as a kind of like a I don't know, like an insult.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a dig or an insult, same thing. You know,
Which is cool. I mean,
I understand, but I think it's I just don't think it's just not right. I don't know. I don't like the whole idea of it. There's no other league that you choose your opponent.
No.
In a playoff spot. You play who you play. That's it. That's how it works. That's how the seasons go. Every season beyond this, I mean, because then baseball's got this on their hands. It's well, what if the New York Mets back in 2000 and whatever decided to go and play this team in the first? I don't like it. The whole idea of it. You mentioned it to me. I'm really not a fan of it. I don't like the bye weeks. I think the perfect reason as to why there shouldn't be any bye weeks is because like what we had seen. You don't want to like implement extra time in between. I even thought last year in the playoffs, like a lot of these games, as they were switching over, it was just a lot of time in between games. And like, you're used to a system,
absolutely.
Like you said, you play a long season, you're just used to a routine. We all have routines. I mean, I'm guessing you have a routine every day when you go to work. I have a routine every time I go to work. There's a routine. Now, if someone were to come up to me and say, hey, now you got to start working at this time, and then, it's just, you're basically taking someone out of their routine, player or not, which, if you're trying to do your job the best way, you want to be in a nice routine to be able to consistently perform, which in, baseball's terms, it's almost an impossible feat to be, absolutely consistent. And it's a game that's, 300 average gets you a career. So, and also, suspicion as well. Yeah. So, but I think what baseball's doing here is just not smart. You're changing the game that's been great for years. The MLB has other issues that they're going to have to nip at, and I'm pretty sure that this issue of the playoffs shouldn't be one. I think whoever you are meant to play at the end of a season is who you're meant to play. There's really no other way. I don't want people picking and choosing and, if this team would have picked this team, the whole idea of it is just unappealing to me.
Yeah. So there's somebody else that kind of shares your opinion, is Trevor Bauer, pitcher who used to play for he used to play for the Indians. Now I forget the team that he's with right now, but he sat down and basically, because first he sent out a tweet calling Rob Manfred a joke and this and that, and then he had this video that just came up like right before we went on the air. So I was kind of pumped about that because I was like, you know what? At first I was just going to talk about his tweet. Now I'm like, I actually got the guy's voice talking about it. And, here's Trevor Bauer on, the whole playoff system.
I'm really, really upset about this new ridiculous playoff policy that Rob Manfred has suggested or proposed or leaked. I don't even know how it got on the internet. I don't know why it would even get on the internet. It's that ridiculous. Like, just reading through it without even thinking about it for a second, they're just wrong. Like, who put this out without thinking of the fact that the best team in the league is going to get a 6-day layoff, a 7-day layoff, while we sort out this whole 3 games here and this wild card, and we're going to pick our opponent, and we're going to do this whole reality TV stuff. Meanwhile, the best team in baseball is sitting at home waiting for all this crap to transpire. God forbid someone's ace pitches 4 days before the end of the regular season and then has 10 days in between starts. And this isn't football where you can heal up, and that helps. Like, being on a routine is so important in baseball. We play for 6 months, and now you're going to say at the most critical time of the year that we're going to get 10 days off maybe, or the 6 days in between games, and who knows how the pitching rotation lines up and all this different stuff, and that's supposed to be a benefit? That's supposed to be the best team in baseball gets this benefit? These are just some things that come off the top of my head. The first time I read through the proposal, I haven't even had time to think about this. I just read it like an hour ago, and I just am so beside myself with Rob Manfred and his ridiculous rule changes that he keeps proposing.
He's pretty upset.
Yeah, well, he's right about the whole routine thing. I mean, because like you said, man, I mean, like you're putting a pitcher through a rotation for 6 months, and then you're going to decide to go ahead and give him extra days off. Like you said, this isn't football. We're not trying to heal up here. Baseball isn't a contact sport.
No.
It's very, it's probably the
streaky.
Streaky.
It's a very streaky
but it's a very
sport.
mental game.
Yeah.
You really need to have a clear head when you're playing this game, and part of being a clear head will be running yourself within a routine. And to give, like he said, there's no benefit there to giving them extra days. It's only going to put them out of whack. Not to mention there's going to be a whole circus going on, like we just talked about, with them picking teams.
Yeah.
I mean, this, and then you'll get media coverage beyond. You're right, media coverage will be unbelievably off the charts. Unbelievable. There'll be so much to write about. Oh, I can't believe the Yankees picked the Indians. They must think the Indians can't handle them. And the Indian tabloids would just go nuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's just such an unnecessary add to the game. It's a game that really needs to get a spark, because right now it's probably more dull than ever before.
Yeah,
and it's losing fans. I mean, I played the game growing up. I played baseball. Not that bad at it. I played it for a long time, and the professional level of this game is almost becoming a laughingstock. Just for myself, this is my own perspective. Other people have other issues, with baseball, or some people just love the game no matter what.
Yeah,
it's understandable. We are who we are. It's but for me, the game is trying to go an extra level to try to get a spark back into it, which I can absolutely understand and absolutely respect, because it needs it. But this isn't the way to go about it. You don't go and, have teams picking teams on who's going to play who, and, we want these guys. You're adding a drama, like he said, a reality TV show it turns into, as opposed to a game.
Yeah.
And remember, this is a game. This is a sport. You'll realize that half the average regular fan will tell you that they don't want the drama aspect of the game, and we've talked about it over and over with aspects within football and, different things that came up within these games that were basically just drama, and I'm not here to watch a drama series. I'm here to watch a game of football. You got, if you have drama within other aspects and certain opinions, hey man, there's 6 other days of the week to take care of that. Or there's actually even another, 12 hours in the day that you could take care of that. But I'm here to watch a game and have fun watching a game, and it's a great game. Yeah. Football, baseball, these are great games. They've been around for years for a reason. And yet we're trying to bring drama into it, and there's really just no reason for it, because there's just really no room for drama in these sports, because I'll tell you, the average fan will tell you that's not an aspect they're looking forward to.
Yeah. The thing I started to think about, and what started to really kind of change my mind on the whole aspect of, changing up the playoff system. Like we said, baseball is kind of, at a point in time where, people feel like it's a dull sport, as you said, and it's a boring sport, and this and that.
Trying
like
to get
you're
a spark.
not, yeah, like you don't, like for the average fan, they're not gonna, they just don't want to sit around and, watch a boring sport.
I mean, let alone for me. We live in New York, and right now it's the middle of winter, and so the Islanders being on, and then football, and even more football with the XFL. It's logical. A lot of people don't. It's more people are going to go out during the summer months, as opposed to the winter months.
And baseball now, though, for us in New York, it's a lot different, because we're looking forward to the baseball season. There's some cities that don't look forward to the baseball season, therefore not watching baseball.
Yeah, but why do you think that is?
We always say
you look at
baseball
these,
is
you look
a very
at these salaries, and you look at the difference in the non-salary cap in MLB.
Like, I don't even think it's at that
It's got to
point,
be that.
But this is where the playoff system may actually help, because you know what? Maybe it stops the tanking factor, where teams feel like they have a better shot now, because now if this whole playoff system was implemented last year, you have teams like the Mets making the playoffs at 86 wins, whereas they were under 500 at the All-Star break. So now you're looking at teams that feel as though they have a shot now. So when you look at the whole aspect of changing the playoff system, why is baseball the only sport that doesn't change?
Well,
I understand that, like, because I love the sport.
I'm
of
not
baseball.
liking the
like,
picking of teams.
The
more teams you want to add to it, I don't think you'll see an objection.
I feel
here.
like if they
I talked about it
it,
for
yeah.
how long just now, and there wasn't a part of me that thought adding more teams to it would be the negative aspect of it. It's everything else that they were discussing. Where you're picking I don't like that. That whole aspect is horrible to me.
That is, kind of.
And these teams, the New York Mets, I'm sorry. I'm not. This isn't even trying to heat on the New York Mets. Like, you have to remember, there are just teams out there that have an obnoxious amount of money that they're spending on their roster.
But you're also seeing.
You're trying to compete with this. And granted, every New York Met fan in the world wants to take on the New York Yankees, the big-time Yankees, with all the money that they have, and defeat them.
But they won't.
That's the problem, is that, this money spent, obviously is money spent right.
The Mets spend just as much money, but the thing is,
they
like,
don't.
But
that it's not as much at all.
They're up there, though.
I
they're
understand,
in the top 10.
Top 10, and then number 1 is a huge difference. That's the scary thing about the league.
But the thing
and
also
God,
is,
if you're
like,
number
you're
25
seeing,
on that list, you're done.
You're seeing more and more teams, though, keeping their star players. I mean, who would have thought that Mike Trout was going to sign with the Angels, like re-sign with the Angels? Back in the day, that would have never happened. That guy would have been, with
a Yankee. That's what you want to say. You could say it. You're allowed to say it.
Like that.
He would have been a New York Yankee.
He probably would have, or a Red Sox, or a Dodger. That like
or the
big-time
3-team
teams.
league that we have right now, and that's the problem that baseball has. And that's why teams in
you're
Oakland don't want to even watch.
The Astros would have never been able to do something like that. And now
come from last to first because of the. Don't get me started with that stuff.
Well, we're gonna get into that now, but it's interesting. We'll see.
Don't prematurely get me started on that.
We'll see. We'll see what happens when it comes to. I think they're looking to implement this in the 2022 season, but now, kind of stepping back into this whole Houston Astros thing, and we've talked about it. We're not going to get into it in that aspect. We're not going to talk about the Astros basically, but just the whole thing. We never took or never even thought of the side of what they kind of were doing. We were just kind of thinking of it as like, oh, well, it's tarnishing the sport. And, as Yankee fans, it could have cheated us out of a World Series possibly, or just getting to the World Series. We never thought about the individual player. And now you're seeing more and more players come out. Masahiro Tanaka saying that, they cheated the Yankees, this and that. Like, just guys coming out. But now you're starting to hear more and more stuff. So something that dropped, I think it was yesterday, was a pitcher, journeyman pitcher, is suing the Astros for ruining his career, basically, and, now he's not playing. So we never took the side of, the positions and how this affects the player. And when you think about it, now Mike Clevinger, pitcher for the Cleveland Indians, Trevor Bauer, an ex-pitcher of the Cleveland Indians, who's really good friends with Mike Clevinger. They were both outspoken about it. They're not happy. Trevor Bauer is like all over Twitter about the Astros. It's actually pretty funny. If you haven't read any, just go through his Twitter. It's pretty funny.
You know what? Because he probably had a couple of starts against them where he thought something was up.
He says on Part of My Take, the Barstool Sports podcast, because they had him on right around January 20th. So it was kind of right around the whole news dropping on, the suspensions and stuff like that and the firings. He basically said that he had 3 different people that did not know each other in baseball that came up to him and said that, watch out for the Astros. They're using, some sign-stealing tactics. So he kind of he took a different approach when he played the Astros. And, Mike Clevinger also said that he, had word, and then also news just broke today, like, again, right before we went on, saying that the Nationals were basically told that, maybe you should watch out. They're stealing signs, which may have helped because the Nationals ended up winning the World Series. Alex Cora actually went and said something to the Nationals about it. So that's interesting. I didn't get to read the article. I just saw a notification on my phone saying, Alex Cora and other players or people told the Nationals to watch out for something like this. So back to what I was talking about.
So scary.
It really is. So we never took the side of, the player. And now when you think about it, now say, as Trevor Bauer was saying in part of my take, you take a position, a right fielder to start with, and he has a pretty good season. Now, the right fielder for the Astros, stealing signs, knowing when a curveball's coming, rakes it that year. Now, they go into free agency. Who's getting the better contract? Who's getting the better team to look at him? It's going to be the guy from the Astros.
Again, from the second I saw this come out, I knew this would be an issue.
Absolutely. I mean,
in so many aspects. The baseball's got. I told you a while back that they were in for a rude awakening with this, and now you got players suing organizations, and like you said, they're going to be. He's not even keeping any of the money.
Yeah, he's looking to get I think it's 31. I forget the number. I think it was $31 million, and he's looking to donate it to charities. He's just basically saying his last stop in the big leagues. He appeared in 11 games, 5 starts for the Blue Jays in 2017, struggled with a 6.31
and one
ERA.
of those starts could have been.
The last start that he's had in the big leagues was against the Astros, and they routed him for 5 home runs and 18 hits. And he hasn't played in the big league since.
Yeah, so he's got a argument, and that's this is almost laughable. This is and it's not laughable on the player's stake at all. I mean, the Astros just don't realize the kind of crap that they put themselves through.
Yeah.
I understand winning is important, and they had a good young team. All these great players were young and ready to go, but this is going to another level. And like I had said, baseball is really got a lot coming its way on the aspect of this whole situation, because going forward even as well, like you said, they heard rumblings within around the league about this even occurring, and nothing was done about it. So obviously, if you got the average player who's in a completely different city from the entire organization of the Houston Astros, how is Major League Baseball not aware of this at any regard? So there's a lot of problems that are going to be coming as, again, we're in the early ages of this. There's really not much. You got stories here and there coming. There's going to be bigger stories than even this coming out beyond this. And for baseball, this isn't going to be an easy fix. This isn't like steroids. This isn't where you can just drug test a player and the problem goes away. Shoo, bye.
Yeah.
Someone gambling on the game or something. You make a statement out of one of the players and boom, shoo, it goes away. This might not go away as quickly as a lot of players or a lot of fans would even like it to, or even Major League Baseball especially would like it to.
Well, I urge everybody to kind of look into the full versions of some of these clips that I'm going to play. It's basically just Mike Clevinger, but on 2 different podcasts. So Mike Clevinger was on the Mike Stud podcast, YNK, you know what I mean. Mike Stud, an ex-baseball player, played at Duke with Marcus Stroman, ended up getting Tommy John surgery, started rapping in the time of him rehabbing, figured out that he was he was a really good singer. Went that route because baseball wasn't working out for him, with injuries. So now he's, a big time, rapper. So it's pretty funny. But he has a podcast, and the cool thing about him is that he's so close to the whole sports business and industry and all the players in basically any sport. You know, he's cool with Julian Edelman. He's cool with Marcus Stroman, obviously. You know, and just he's really in that industry. So he gets Mike Clevinger on his podcast just to talk about it. And it's interesting to hear what Mike Clevinger had to say.
This was far above and beyond someone just sitting on second base, like watching you tip your pitches. And for them to like go there that far and basically like change their whole, I mean, they changed that whole organization with those 3 years, man. Like they flipped the whole script around. There's guys that got $100 million deals out of this, and we don't even know what their batting average would be if they didn't know a curveball was coming. And I have boys that like, you know, I grew up, those friends, close friends, great people, families, kids that literally were taking out loans, working 3 jobs in the off season to make ends meet, to still try to chase that light. And if like it's one of them that's getting knocked around or sitting back down, not seeing it back because someone was cheating the game that hard, and they expect us to brush it by the wayside, and players don't want to speak out, and people at the network want to be quiet. This is something that, no, I'm not gonna be quiet. This is bullshit, man. You shouldn't be quiet.
Right.
Everyone should be mad.
I've never seen someone nail something so, because he's so
and
correct.
And he has, like, I have another clip of him, and he's
But it's incredible how
yeah.
correct he is, and he's right. A lot of people, like I'm telling you, a lot of fans as well think that this isn't a big issue.
Yeah.
This is a very big issue for baseball.
Yeah.
And a lot of players are very upset at the aspect. And like he said, man, people's lives and taking out loans, trying to get up to the majors, try to make that serious money. They got families to take care of. You know, you can understand it's not easy to live even in New York.
Yeah.
So it's to actually have these guys jumping around left and right, and you got players that were basically hand-gifted it because he knew a curveball was coming. It
Absolutely.
really is a bad look for baseball right now in so many aspects that, especially if it's known that they knew about this.
Yeah. And this is Mike Clevinger again. He's being interviewed while he's getting a tattoo, but it's just him like really like just right off the cuff and just telling you how he feels. So this is Mike Clevinger as well. I think it was Momentum. It's some media company on YouTube. But I will post the links in the caption below so everybody can check out the full thing. It's definitely worth listening to. Definitely.
There's a lot more that the public doesn't see because you don't see the money being placed. You don't see guys going up and down. So you're not seeing those guys literally working their ass off to finally get a glimpse that literally living off their parent, like taking 2 different jobs in the off season, not even being able to have to lift at 2 a.m., bro. I've been there. I've had to do that. I've had to live with my mom till I got to the big leagues. And now you're telling me that someone could have potentially shorted my career or sent me back down, made me figure shit out because they knew what I was throwing when I was in their park? So many guys are only there trying to figure out, how can I stay here? What will make me stay here? But to each their own. But I'm not going to sit here and just be quiet about with like someone blatantly taking millions of dollars and food off my table, let alone other people's table.
I think the best way to put that when you see a video like that is you literally don't realize that millions of dollars get put into this game and that players are aware of the amount of money is there to be made. And like he said, man, if you're a young pitcher coming into the league and the first start that you ever have is against the Houston Astros and you realize they know every single pitch that you're going to throw, you get roughed up and you get sent right back to the minors with no idea if you're ever going to see another chance in Major League Baseball. And that's what the Houston Astros did to these players. And it's just wrong.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way to put it. It's wrong in so many ways. And again, to the average fan that thinks this isn't an issue, you have no idea what's coming. It's going to be bad. There's going to be worse stories than this. And like he said, there's people out there that want him to be quiet about this. There's no reason he should have to be quiet about it.
Baseball. A lot of the people in baseball.
Of course. Absolutely. They want this to be hushed up and put under the rug. It's not going to be because it was a big issue.
I think what the coolest thing about that is, light point of this whole thing is Mike Clevinger is a star in in baseball. Like, he's one of the better pitchers in the league. And the fact that he's not even thinking about kind of like he's not talking about himself, really.
You know what
he's
that's
talking
called?
about.
That's called being an amazing teammate.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we've talked about this numerous times about how you can't just teach someone to be a great teammate.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Mike Clevinger is probably one of the best teammates that you can possibly have.
Exactly. And I thought it was, I guess because he was there.
Of course.
Like,
they all are.
He was at that
all
point.
Those great
like,
players, absolutely.
You know, and like I said, the minor leagues is such a long period of time that some guys just don't get out of that. Like, you know, with different sports, you're going straight to the majors. Like, you're going straight to the league. You know, and with baseball, it's like you got double single A, you got single A, you got double A, you got
a process
triple
to get
A,
up to Major
and
League
it's like,
Baseball. A lot
you know,
of things
if
need
you're
to go right for you.
Yeah, like if you're not a top 10 pick, you may not see the league for like 3
Again,
years.
man, you don't
4
even
years.
know what's going on in these minor league teams, the teams that
No,
we don't
you
even
don't.
see on television.
Yeah.
This is a big issue for baseball, okay? And there's going to be other reports coming out. There's almost there's absolutely no shot that this isn't going to be a bigger story than people can even imagine. Like, this is a big concern.
Yeah.
And people aren't understanding this. There's a lot of parts that are going into play with this.
Yeah.
It wasn't right what they did. They had millions of dollars were based on the Houston Astros, but even going back underneath and seeing the different little aspects that even these minor league teams from these, you know, towns that half of us haven't even heard of.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on down there?
Yeah.
There's garbage cans down there too.
And it's funny though, when it comes to you know, minor leagues and a joke of an organization, I should say, because we're done with this whole Astros thing until something else breaks on this
It's
this
going
story.
to,
It's
and
just
you know it.
like I think we've hit on every single portion of this story that we could have that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, the Mets.
Agreed.
The Mets spent $57 million on a spring training home clubhouse. You're going to be there for 6 weeks. They spent $57 million in St. Lucie in their clubhouse. Now, you would think, oh, well, one of their minor league organizations is the St. Lucie Mets. No, they can't use that clubhouse. The Mets are not allowing that team to use that clubhouse. They want it so that the minor leaguers have a reminder of the status that they're working to earn. I find it funny. Ty Kelly, who I don't know if he's still playing for the Mets, but he did play for the Mets in the minor leagues and in the majors. He tweeted out, "Tough to forget you're an A-ball when you're rationing 2 plates of spaghetti for 25 guys after games, but sure, leather couches will go to their heads."
It's true. I mean, this is this is just nonsense of a story.
It's stupid.
It's a nonsense of it makes no sense. I mean, I don't understand why you would spend that much money and then it's not even being utilized. So
yeah, exactly. You're going to have it used for 6 weeks and that's it?
Hey, man, it's you that pays that. I mean, I'm not a baseball guy, man. I don't go to these games.
That's the funny taxpayers paid for that.
Ew.
$55 million of that. The Mets only paid $2 million of that.
Ew.
And it's only going to be used 6 weeks. I mean, can you say a joke of an organization?
Can you say uproar?
Yeah.
There are probably schools that could use that.
I mean,
that's scary. I know teachers that go out there and have to buy chalk for their chalkboards,
notebooks and pens.
That's
and
a possibility.
Yeah.
It's a scary situation, but hey, man, I mean, they don't pay me to make those decisions, and I don't understand the ones they are paying.
So we spoke about it before the fight this past Saturday. UFC 247. Jon Jones was going up against Dominic Reyes, and I said before the fight that Saturday when we had our podcast that he just seems to have like, I wouldn't say a problem, but he kind of levels out a little bit. His athleticism takes over when it comes to that. But, he had problems with Alexander Gustafsson, and he showed to have problems with Dominic Reyes in this fight. I'm talking about Jon Jones, obviously. But a lot of people feel like Dominic Reyes actually won that fight. And when you think about it, because the fight went to a decision, and, we could talk about the fight all we want, but this is kind of a bigger issue, I guess you can say. And I wanted to get into it because I saw a clip of Joe Rogan during not just the Jon Jones fight, but it was during another fight during the main card. And he's talking about the judges not watching. So now, when you think about it, that main event, Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes, we're saying that it went to the decision and that Dominic Reyes probably won the fight, but then you look at this clip of him, Joe Rogan just ripping this judge to shreds about not watching this fight. Again, it wasn't the Jon Jones fight, but
It was earlier in the card.
it was earlier in the card.
And then you look at how the final
And then
fight
you-
ended.
exactly.
Wow.
So
Okay, UFC.
yeah.
Now you got our eyes open.
I have
That's
the
not
clip.
that's not the right move there.
No, I know. And I have the clip of Joe Rogan for like 30 seconds just ripping to shreds this judge. And I'm going to play it now. This is Joe Rogan during, I forget who was fighting. It was the women's fight. And he just, because him and Dominic Cruz go back and forth about, this judge just not watching. And they watch them for like 30 seconds. And he doesn't look up at all. So this is Joe Rogan and Dominic Cruz just ripping this judge.
We're looking at a judge who's literally not watching the fight at all. This is insane.
The judges just don't even watch. They're looking down at the floor. Insane. It's going to be tough for the fighters tonight to figure out how to win a decision.
This is crazy. He's still not watching the fight.
Nice body kick.
It's kind of, I wouldn't say laughable, because you don't want to see a guy.
It's scary.
It's scary because when it
he's
comes
literally
down,
just watching the he had to stop watching the fight for a second because he's like, is this guy unbelievable?
Exactly.
The entire time looking down, and now you look at what the main event occurred.
That's what I'm saying.
What happened there, and again, I was wrong. I had talked about how Jon Jones no doubt would be able to win this fight. Jon Jones did show that he is a champion by the fifth round that he was able to put together. And again, I'm not going to take any credit away from him. But the first two rounds of that fight were completely, almost utterly dominated by Reyes. And I was very shocked even in the early part of that fight. I cannot believe they that went even to Jon Jones. If anything, I thought it should have been a draw. It was just it was a close fight. And it's scary to make a call like that at that point. You don't know.
It came down to, obviously.
But who knows? These guys might have been watching the first two rounds of the fight.
And I think it comes down to Jon Jones having more of the takedowns. So
of course,
that was just the easier way of going about it.
Absolutely. He talked about it even on his post-fight. All he talked about was, I think my takedowns were able to take care of that. And it's like, don't put this this isn't a wrestling match. This is UFC. And I think the UFC to some degree needs to realize that, there's two types of way of fighting. Or many types of way of fighting, to be honest. But there are, either you're standing or you're on the ground. And if you're trying to just put someone on the ground, then do something while you have them on the ground. Yeah. Taking them down and doing nothing with it, this isn't, that pavement isn't going to,
that's a crazy thing, because a guy can get taken down, get points for it. Like, get points taken away.
Literally,
or
they
points,
get right back
and
up.
then they get right back up. But it's like,
where are the points coming from? What exactly happened there? Not much.
This is the problem when it comes down to it. We complain about refs, in other sports and this and that. But when it comes to
if you saw a ref in the NFL looking down during a play like that, and the announcer said something, we'd have a big uproar.
But it's not even that. Like, when you look at it, we rip refs, in the NFL, we rip the umpires in baseball, we want robot umps, this and that. When you look at it, in combat sports, especially the UFC, these fighters are on like a fight to fight contract. Like, all right, I'm signing for 10 fights here. But they have like a stipulation. I don't know if it's in contract or just the UFC way of doing it. If a fighter loses 3 fights in a row, you're out. Like you're out of the UFC. So the fact that, what if it comes down to Reyes? Obviously he was undefeated, so it's null and void. But what if it comes down to Reyes having 2 fights lost in a row? You go into it, and this judge isn't even looking at your fight, and you end up losing by decision, therefore getting kicked out of the UFC, losing your job. Like, what are we going to say then? Like, why? Like, I don't like that this comes down to, 4 guys, 3 guys.
I'm pretty sure because of what just happened in that last event, especially considering the main event, and it might cause a huge uproar. Like, we're talking about it right now, but you can only imagine how Twitter's reacting to it.
That's how I saw it.
Of course, no, absolutely. They're probably reacting like at an unreal pace.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, this is something that has to be fixed, and I'm pretty sure as we talk right now, there are conversations within the UFC about taking care of that and making sure that the judges are out there watching these fights, because, like you said, these are people's careers, these are people's
livelihood.
They work for months at a time.
Yeah.
You're showing up that night to judge a fight, so it's a big difference there. And
you're
not working hard to become a judge.
To be honest with you, like, how do you fix that? Like, what's the way of fixing that? It's tough because.
Well, if you notice, the publicity of a judge in the UFC is very minimal.
Well, and that's the thing.
You practically don't even know who these people are.
Exactly, and we
they'll
have
put
a
their
problem.
names out there, but
and we have a problem with knowing the referee's name in the NFL or the referee's name.
You don't want to be that
you
judge
don't want to
that
know
judge
those guys.
the fight opposite than the rest of the world.
Yeah,
because you got to remember, again, like I said, folks, this is the biggest problem. Like we had talked about the sports gambling aspect of this, and if a guy were to judge a fight the wrong way, there are probably a lot of people out there that had Reyes
lost money,
on that fight and had a lot of money pending on it, and there were a lot of people that had Jones probably pending for a lot of money. So
and we said what Jon Jones was minus 500 in that fight,
and a lot of people probably put a lot of money down.
You could put a lot of money down on Reyes to pay out a lot of money,
or you could have had a lot of money on Jon Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's so many things into this whole aspect, and the fact that it comes down to this guy and he doesn't even he's not even watching a fight. Yeah, mind you, he probably was watching. It was the main event, but just the fact that there could be a question. I mean, that's the problem. That's the problem that we have. That's the problem that we have with baseball. Like, just that question of, did this guy take steroids, or did this guy cheat and steal signs and have a buzzer on his chest? Like, the fact that it's like, was this guy watching? Like, the questions like this is not something that you want to hear if you're, first of all, a fan of the sport, a CEO, as Dana White is. Like, this is just not. It's not something that you want to see in your sport, and it's sad that there's. We're not discussing the fight. We're discussing what possibly could have happened, as in the judge not watching.
It was a great fight.
It was, and like. That's the thing when you watch a guy like Jon Jones, an absolutely dominating force in the sport. Some may say he's the best fighter ever.
And he looked human.
And he looked human in that fight. And like, that's something that you want to see more, especially because we loved it. I mean, I'm not saying we love seeing people lose, but when Ronda Rousey, like, everybody at most of the points in her career were like, she's unbelievable. Nobody's gonna beat this woman. Like, we might have to start having her fight guys. Like, that's how dominating she was. And then you have Holly Holm come in and just kind of
former boxer.
Yeah, like,
she just got one good hit of her.
And then it just kind of changed the outlook on Ronda Rousey's career. Now she's in the WWE. Like, it's just...
And Jon Jones might be following.
Yeah. Like, listen,
that's another article for another day.
I love watching Jon Jones fight. I think he's unbelievable. and he's definitely something that UFC needs in the sport. You know, that's why it's so hard to fathom, you know, the stuff that he went through and failing the test and just having like 2 years out of his prime taken because, you know, of being an idiot. But just overall, like, it's like, dude,
he comes back and it's like, incredible. He's a gifted.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, just the fact that, you know, Dominic Reyes, I think now it comes to a point where we're not thinking about anybody else fighting Jon Jones. Like, Dominic Reyes has to fight Jon Jones again. Like, that's what's going to have to happen before, just because of how this whole thing transpired
and what we're talking about right now.
Exactly. It's like, this is not what the UFC wants. They want to know, like, all right, can Dominic Reyes do it again? And they're like, this time actually beat him. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. I think we're going to talk about some, you know, NFL talk. You know, Phillip Rivers was.
We have a couple of months.
Yeah, like we got some time.
You know, there's really no reason to even discuss to you about Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady, because eventually they're going to obviously land somewhere, and we're just going to talk about it again. So.
Both of which have been in the league 16 plus years, and have never hit free agency. So the fact that these two are hitting free agency. And, you know, you got teams that are going to need quarterbacks. And
absolutely.
Where do the Chargers go? What's you know, the Patriots going to do? And
it's going to be
like
a very
we said,
interesting NFL
we have
offseason.
time, and I'm excited. We're going to do another draft show. Like, that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So the fact that, like, a lot of stuff is going to transpire before the draft and then definitely after the draft. So we got some time to talk about, you know, the free agencies, you know, the free agent team, you know, players and, you know, teams and what they're going to do. But as of right now, you know, some quick news before we get off. Dak and the Cowboys are trying to get a deal done before the franchise tag window. We talked about the Dak Prescott situation.
I think it's looking good. I'm kidding. Absolutely joking. There's no serious.
Trent Williams, star left tackle for the Washington Redskins.
Yep.
You know, before, you know, hiring Ron Rivera, it was basically
it was a whole new
all
culture.
of done.
Yeah, a whole new
for
culture.
Trent Williams,
including
being
a new
off of you know, the Redskins.
You can call it
now,
Ron Rivera, but yeah, I'm going to call it a new training staff because that was the issue we had.
The training staff.
You have one life, man, so your health needs to be there, and if you're lying about certain aspects of health,
too.
Yeah, absolutely,
the
whole thing, the whole culture is gone, and I think that's been very appealing to Trent Williams, and honestly, good for the Washington, Redskins if they're able to scoop him back up, grab a defensive player, dominant defensive player, which is looking like number 2 overall, and you're looking at a team that could possibly change things around, kind of similar to the way the 49ers did.
Absolutely. So that will do it. I find it funny that we're talking more about baseball in the offseason than we usually do during the season.
Well, you know me, I'm just not a big baseball, but these stories are just obviously
I think we're going to talk
different.
I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in baseball this season.
As the season goes,
it's just going to.
I'm going to be the worst. I'll promise you that, folks. You're not going to want to listen to me because I'm going to badmouth anyone batting 300 at this point.
We're excited about the XFL this week. We'll see what happens. We'll come back next week with the rating and how we felt, week 2 went, and so on and so on. And definitely talk about some NFL. Mookie Betts was finally traded.
Mm-hmm.
That was official the other day. So, that will do it. We'll be back next Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, whatever it is.
Yep.
But I'm Jerry.
I'm Kevin.
Be breezy.
Be breezy. And it is all over.
You've been listening to Running Up the Score. We run up the score on Sports Radio. For more Running Up the Score, go follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at RUTS Sports.